Welcome to bonus topic B008, and this is a series of short videos on topics that vary but are kind of related to the introduction to meditation and the introduction to the internal map of reality. Today's topic is a little bit away from what we've been talking about. Today I'm going to be talking about the essentials for life. And this is a way of prioritizing what the things are. Now, these essentials that I'll be talking about today are really ones that are related to our physiology, our physical ability to survive. So, looking at our laptop, these are the essentials, and again, I'll just point at this point. This is just my view of it, the things I've run into over the decades of, doing things like Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, studying therapeutic massage therapy, traditional Chinese medicine, and, other kinds of disciplines in a related area. So this is Steve's version. It's not meant to be medical advice. Okay, so I'll be following from the essentials of breath, water, and nutrition, and I'll be looking at a fasting as it relates to nutrition. And then the way that we get energy into our body through glucose versus fats. And then we'll look at something called cellular respiration. If you don't know what cellular respiration is, you probably should take a look at it. When we're looking at breath, we're looking at our ability to process the necessary ingredient from the air. And from my research, it seems to be mainly the oxygen that we are needing, although there could be other nutrients in the air. Our ability to survive without sufficient air is very minimal. It's down to 2 minutes. Where you look at these lists of mammals, it ranges from 2 hours to 2 minutes, and there we are at the bottom. I don't know whether I could hold my breath for 2 minutes. Maybe a minute. I don't know. I haven't tried in a while, but definitely I need fresh air all the time. So that's the number one essential ingredient for life. The second one that I think is key is water. We need water every day. And you can see on this little slide here that by the second day we start experiencing dehydration effects. And by the third day we cease to be able to sustain livelihood. So air is a matter of minutes, water, it's a matter of days. Now let's look at the third ingredient, nutrition. When we look at nutrition, there's something strange that happens. We're going from needing air in minutes to water in days to being able to fast for over 30 days and longer. I saw things where people were able to live only on water for months. It's not unusual, and I have done my own multi-day fasting with just water. So what is going on here? All of a sudden, we know that we do need nutrition. It is important, but how is it that we go from air, needing it in a measurement of minutes, water measurement in a few days, and we perish, but we can go without any nutrition for weeks and months. So what is going on here? Well, when you look at it, it is actually something that is really quite unusual. There are recognized benefits from fasting, and it's become part of a therapeutic process all around the world. Everywhere you see this. And fasting is considered to take place after 18 hours of not eating. And we'll talk about what we mean by not eating in a moment. And after 18 hours, between 18 and 24 hours, your body goes into something called autoflangey. And autoflangey is a process where your body begins to process the stored energy and actually creates the necessary energy to be able to sustain life for a prolonged period. And as part of this process, things start to happen. Your digestive health improves, your brain function improves, and this is actually a process that's used to cure some very, very death-threatening diseases by just fasting. So how is it by not eating nutrient we actually heal, we actually get better? Let's look a bit deeper at this. This autophagy, it is something that is extremely positive. You can see here on the bottom that it's considered a way of increasing your longevity. And it has to do with removing cells that are no longer functional, and the body reuses them. And it's considered a survival technique. And it says here short term, but I don't know. Short term is a relative term if you're talking people being able to fast for weeks, months, without any nutrient, just by processing what is already in the body. So if you don't know about autophagy, you should really research it. But here's the point. It only happens when we fast. Okay? So what is going on here? So we have two ways of getting nutrients and energy into the body. One is through eating carbohydrates, and it supplies fast energy. But it says here it's a limited source. But really what they mean is that you cannot store carbohydrates. If you are using carbohydrates or a glucose, basically, sugars, you can't store them. Your body can't store sugars, glucose. It can use it as a fuel, but it can't store them. It can only store fats, and fats are a complete form of energy packet. But the body can live off fats for a long period of time. So we can assume that when people fast, they're living off of their body fats. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, this means that we have two ways of providing energy to the cells. We can do it through carbohydrates, we can do it with fats. The point here is you can only do one or the other. If you are using carbohydrates, i.e. sugars, glucose, you cannot use fats. Okay? Now, I'm not too sure if vice versa is true. You might be able to eat some fats and sugars, but from my understanding is that your body does one or the other. And it has a preference for eating sugars first. And when all the sugars are removed from the body, then the body starts to think, and that is considered fasting. And that's that 18-hour time frame that typically within 18 hours you consumed all the sugars in the body. So when we look at it, so what is the body actually using for energy? And it turns out that it's something called an ATP, and it's a triphosphate, and little phosphorus molecules that get snapped off a chain of 3. And when these phosphates molecule gets knocked off, it creates an energy charge that is used by the cells. This is the energy cells use. Okay? And the body has to manufacture these ATP molecules and chains and store them. And where does it store them? It has to store them as basically a preform in fats. So fats are ready to create this. So your body stores fats, can't store the ATP molecule itself, but it can store all the components necessary to create these. So this is what happens. So there's two ways of getting energy. So one is something called cellular respiration, and this is what happens when you use carbs. You eat something that's basically sugar, and there's a nice apple pie showing here. And look at the formula. It has one molecule of glucose has carbon, has hydrogen, and has oxygen. CHO, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Okay, so when the cell, this is a single cell here, takes one molecule of glucose, okay, it produces 36 molecules of ATP, which is actually quite a bit. They're quite powerful. So one molecule of sugar produces 36 of these ATP tripeptides. However, there's a cost. When the cell creates these ATPs, it generates 6 carbon dioxide molecules. But it also has to digest 6 oxygen molecules, and that's the circulatory thing you see here. We take in oxygen and we put out carbon dioxide. This is why we need oxygen. This is why we die if we don't have oxygen within minutes. So this process is happening at a very rapid rate. So each cell, for every molecule of sugar, requires 6 oxygen molecules and 6 carbon dioxide. Now I want to notice there's a byproduct. And the byproduct of creating ATPs in this way is of water vapor. So there are 6 molecules of water generated for every molecule of sugar. Where does this water go? This is why when people are on a heavy carb diet, they will tend to accumulate water. And water in the body is related to a lot of inflammatory diseases. I know I had a problem with excess water on my ankles, and I would get swelling around the ankles and so on. And this is associated with the consumption of carbohydrates, or it's a byproduct of cellular respiration. This is why when we fast and we go into autoflangey, when we're digesting fats, it's much cleaner. We don't have any byproducts when we digest fats. So this is associated with the keto diet. There are 5 benefits of eating or fasting or being in autophagy. One is that you age in a more healthy way. You have more longevity. The metabolic health improves. Your brain health improves. That is suggested by not having excess inflammation in the brain, reduces the chance of Alzheimer's. Cancers are removed because dysfunctional cells are destroyed and consumed. Quite often, cancers can be removed when you use fats to generate the energy. And finally, a big one, heart health. So a lot of ailments, including diabetes and heart disease and cancers, are associated with the consumption of sugar and the fluids. So just to repeat again, when you use fats to produce the ATP molecule, you do not produce the amount of carbon dioxide, you do not produce the amount of water in the body because fats are ready to produce the ATP. So let's look at this. Here are the countries, some selected countries, and the bluish line indicates the proportion of the population that eat meat, and the green is the proportion that eat vegetables or are vegetarian. So the only country on this list is India, and India is a very high percentage of people that eat vegetables. About, well, it's saying here 25%, so I don't know how these percentages add up. They don't add up to 100. But, so there must be some other class here. But India has the highest percentage at around over 25% are vegetarian. And these other countries are very high, 70% or higher, are traditional meat consumers. So your logic would say, which of these groups should have the longest lifespan, the longest longevity? Who should live the longer? The people that eat primarily vegetables or the people that eat primarily meat? Now, I have been educated up until now to believe that people on a vegetarian diet live longer than people on a meat diet. But what I found when I looked is the opposite, is that these countries have a longer lifespan. So in North America, US, Canada, the average life expectancy is around 80 years. In India, it's like less than 70 years, similar to Iraq here. Now, here's India, and they're under 70 years, and the USA is closer to 80 years. Japan is the highest at over 80. And they happen to also be the highest salt consumers, so they're a meat and vegetarian and seafood diet high in salt, has the longest longevity. So I don't mean this to be beating up on vegetarians, but I just want to have the clear reality of what happens in the body, that when we eat vegetables, we go into the cellular respiration that produces, as a byproduct, carbon dioxide and water. And those two have to be eliminated, otherwise it causes illness. When we thrive on fats, there is less or no byproduct of water and carbon dioxide. I wanted to share this because I have personally witnessed the amazing results of when you restrict carbohydrates in your body. And that's something I've had to do for the last 2 or 3 months with significant results. So I just want you to research it. And again, I'm not doing this to put a negative spin on people who are vegetarian, but I did want to put out the reality that our bodies do perform better when are in a fat-burning mode called Autoflangey, and it's actually the mode at which we do significant healing. When we fast, we actually go into that mode. Okay, I'd be really interested in any comments that you might have about this, and think about it. I'm willing to discuss it. Again, this is not medical advice. It's just something I personally observed.